So after we kept threatening to include the little corgi on a walk, the little corgi is now sitting in the corner. She got to go with us. She doesn't like sitting in the back seat. She's seat belted in place, so she's not all over the place. Because she would be all over the place. Walking, she was all over the place. She did eventually get better, but there was some time before we got there. And surprised Gidge is doing as pleasantly as she has been with her today. Gidge seemed to kind of settle in on the big sisterly type role today, although she did get after her last night because she was getting in her space when Gidge was trying to chill on her bed. So that was the thing. Yeah. So we walked a little over a mile, and hopefully little Peanut back there is, oh crap, please don't do that again. Hopefully the little Peanut is chill this evening, because she got a little more focused activity in. Apparently my brother has been sick, so they are pushing their leave time from tomorrow to Friday instead. And I just had a thought. I want to kill that. No. So I don't get the Basset and the Schnoodle tomorrow. That will wait until the next day. Oh, cool. She's like, what the hell is happening? Yeah. So we've had some dog hair. We're having to navigate this the whole thing. It's just new. There's a whole lot more energy since we have puppy energy. And yeah. I said the other day I was trying to write and she kept trying to use my arm as a pillow while she was sitting in my lap, and it's like, this isn't working out. She did get moved to the floor, and then once she settled in, she was fine, except for when she got too close to Gidge or stepped on Gidge when Gidge was chilling. She did not love that. She is making it a morning thing, stop, to bite Taz in the ear. Yeah. And get him playing. Hey, chill. Chill. Yes, to get him playing, and it's actually working. He kind of he plays the same way he plays with Ziva. It's very short-lived, and I think I'm going to move in case I guess I could sit on one of those stones, but it's wet. I don't know. I'm not trying to get out of the car. Hear that? I don't want to get out of the car. Get in the back seat. Yeah. It's been kind of cold rain and gross. Luckily we didn't get rained on too bad while we were walking. But it's very dreary and my hair was like hella humid. I don't know what was going on. But yeah. So I woke up at like 4, well, okay. It's never that easy. The girls have, okay, mind you, the little Peanut sleeps in a crate in my office. No. And Gidget and Ziva got Taz roped into pestering me in the morning to try to get me up when they're ready for their breakfast. This morning, when I looked at my clock, after he started fussing at me, it was like 2:45. And I just looked at him and it's like, I am not getting up right now for that. It's like, too early, go back to bed. And like I have this little, I mentioned the little fan by the head of my bed. When it's on, it has this little dim light that's on. And I could see Ziva's little eyes. She just like looked at me like, are you serious? And then eventually laid down on her bed and, just stayed there for a little while longer. I ended up getting up like 20 minutes later because I couldn't go back to sleep. I was already awake. And so, yeah. Went ahead and fed them, and my mom was still up, so Pepper was still up, and Pepper was ready for her breakfast. My dad has been known to give her hers early, like 2 o'clock early, depending on, yeah. But she's not as bad. Gross! She's not as pushy about, hey, I see what she's doing. She's trying to eat the seatbelt. Yeah. No. There you go. That's better. Just stand there and behave. No. Stop it. No. You don't make this very difficult anymore. But yeah, so since Peppy was up, I will not feed mine before 3, and I try to push for later than that. But it keeps getting earlier if you don't, and then if I go to bed earlier, then it messes everything up, and then they're like trying to wake me up at like 1. It's happened before. And that gets they're used to me. If I will say, okay, if I get up to go to the bathroom, it's stay put, be right back. And then like they won't go anywhere, they'll just go back to sleep. If it is too early, then I will tell them too early, go back to bed. And they will. Usually, maybe not without some fussing, but stop. Sit. Maybe not without some fussing, but yeah, they will agree to it. And I have pushed them back until like 7:30, so we are capable of doing this, but just since I had some night shift time there for a while, it became an issue because if I was already awake, like if I got home at 3 o'clock in the morning, then I didn't want to wake up an hour after I went to sleep, so I would just feed them then. So it was just kind of a whole ordeal that has become a continued ordeal. No. Yeah. No. But then, of course, I was awake and couldn't go back to sleep, so here's this. And so I spent some time writing. And it went well. No! No. Quit that. Oh, fuck's sake. Yeah, so I've thought before that it's like there's a very good possibility that my book is going to get written in the early morning hours when I can't sleep, and yet I'm not awake enough to want to go to my computer or to turn the light on so I could actually write. And so I just text myself, and I did a bunch of that last night. And it started because I used to text myself dreams that I had, like little whatever I could remember of them. I would just try to send that to myself. So I have this nice text messaging chain with myself. So I send send a message, and then I get it back in response too. And every now and then I'll go through and clear some of those out, and then write them down. Past couple of days, I've done some variation of that, but part of the one, I think. Stop. She's eating the leash again. Yeah. part of the one yesterday. Like, okay, and then too, if I'm not around my computer to continue it, then I can text myself more messages. Stop it. And it works out well on that end. I was actually going to do a video over at my aunt's house today, but I was sitting in the recliner and had the cat on my arm. So I'm like covered in white cat hair today, but not as bad as it was thanks to the lint rollers. Good grief. But it was bad. But when I was sitting over there and thinking about doing a video, I turned the camera on and was looking around. It's like, there's way too many pictures on the wall behind me, and I can't do that there. So, they're family pictures and stuff, yeah. So, yeah, that didn't need to be in my video. But anyway, I did some writing for like an hour and a half. I just started sending myself messages. Hey, knock it off, Peanut. And it's mainly stuff I've talked about on here before, and it's just like the ongoing thoughts that I'm weaving together, connecting the dots for myself, and then I'll talk about them here, and then, I'll write them down, whatever, and then expand on them further, and then come back to them, that kind of a thing. But it's like the big points of the thing continue to be the same. Like all the big details, of course, those haven't changed at all. The focus of what I'm talking about may shift a little bit, and that's actually a good thing. Because like when I started this whole thing, I've talked about on here a whole lot about that dream that I had back in March, where I was in the bathroom stall and there was a girl sitting outside of the stall talking to me, and she said, you have to start sharing the message you already have to share before more of your mission will be made clear. And it will take time to gain momentum, but it will. But you need to start. And that, of course, was after I'd taken my hiatus from the channel. Hey, what are you doing? When I started back in November. Where'd she go? Oh, she's on the seat. I can feel her on the seat, but I couldn't see her because she was in the middle. Should probably try to kill the fluff on my coat if I'm not careful. But yeah, I started in November, got to December, had a handful of videos, and then got to a point where it's like, I have to take a break because I expanded so far beyond what I thought I was capable of doing. And then I had to basically ground in that energy and make that the new normal, like my new understanding of myself and what I was capable of doing. But then, I thought all throughout February that I wanted to get back into it, but I didn't do it right away. And then March, I had this dream. It's basically the kick in the butt I needed to get going further. So yeah. But, and I've talked about various dreams that I've had on here many times. So I'm just going to read this thing that I wrote. It was right around 2 pages. But a lot of it, I've been kind of thinking about recently and changing my perspective on some things. Whatever. Anyway, it says, I used to think I was straight because I was mainly attracted to men. I have since come to realize that it's never been about being straight. It was that I've always known that there's one specific person I've been looking for in my lifetime, and I innately knew in this lifetime he was in the masculine packaging. As Rumi says, the lovers don't one day finally meet, they are in each other all along. His higher self has been guiding me all along the way, but because the human school of Earth is set up as such, each incarnation we come to, we have to remember lessons from previous lifetimes within this lifetime, which is part of why this school is known to be so difficult. Since I remembered what I needed to remember, and because there were specific triggering points along the way, I've been able to move beyond the veil of forgetfulness to start learning the real lessons that were kept from me until the time was right. When I was in high school, a series of events led me to praying some big prayers for my lifetime. Because of who I am within the deepest levels of my soul, I was always going to follow through on praying for those things. I wasn't immediately prepared for the knowings that came with those prayers. As a senior in my last week of high school, I suddenly knew one of my very good friends would die in our mid-30s and would be the reason members of our group got back together for the first time in several years. I also knew it would be his death that would make space for me to finally start putting pieces together for myself at 40 years of age. But because I had him on a pedestal, I thought it somehow meant it was my fault he died, and that was something I was not prepared for at any level. So I ran hard from all those friendships that had come to mean so much to me. The other knowing I had didn't fully make sense. I kept seeing this group of 5 guys in a band, and it always felt like we had some mission that we were out to save the world together. For the time, because it was the closest thing I could connect it to, I thought it was the band that my friend and my high school boyfriend were in together. After all, they were the good little Christian boys, and I was trying desperately to be the good little Christian girl everything in my life kept telling me I had to be. That group didn't entirely make sense because the group I saw, I knew that I would come to be very good friends with all the members of the group. In that band, Steve hated me, Brandon was always indifferent toward me, Brad and I barely spoke once we broke up, Tyler died, and Paul only speaks to me once a year on our shared birthday. Though not every year, and sometimes we might, for some reason, reconnect momentarily elsewhere, but it's always been short-lived. So that didn't make sense, and so I let it go for a time, even though I always held this group in my heart and longed that such a connection might come into my life. Get it all. Shaky trying to read it today. Our mid-30s came, and Tyler died at 34, just 10 days after my 35th birthday. I hit 40 and started lining up with some things I'd start to intend and found myself making connections to. I realized I had, in a sense, been activated by this group of guys in a band that was gaining popularity fairly quickly in that time frame and has continued to do so despite a few changes in the band membership. But that specific group had activated me included the counterpart I'd been looking for, the one I've carried with me for my entire life, as well as 2 energies that were close, but I didn't immediately know why. Upon meditating on the connection, one day I was at the gym and jumped on the treadmill, and immediately in my head I was somewhere else with these 2 guys, and we were just staring at each other until I felt myself shrug and heard myself say, "What, you don't recognize your sister just because you've never seen her in the physical before?" I had gotten an app on my phone a couple years earlier that would let me know the cycles I was in and passing through based on my birth chart and how it lined up and what was going on astrologically for the planet. It mentioned specifically that it's usually around 40 to 41 that, based on my chart, I should start to finally get to know myself for me rather than just taking on the projections of my family or culture around me. Suddenly, this knowing that I would be 40 before starting to figure things out for myself seemed more multi-layered than I realized, since it was apparently even written literally in the stars. My activation wasn't immediately obvious to me. I felt a very strong pull to this group after I heard music that specific group of 5 energies had put together. Of course, other energies were connected as there were still others active within the individual connections that played into it. But the exact 5 energies playing the music lit something up within me, and suddenly they started appearing in multiple dreams. One that really started with me that I would eventually later realize I could go back into. Aside from that, I followed these guys on Instagram after I had decided I had refused to get any further social media distractions, since most of the people I knew already had Facebook, and I didn't feel so inclined to branch out beyond that. Then one day, I found myself feeling strongly like I needed to get Instagram, even though I literally knew nothing about it. I get the app and start following this band and several others as well, and whatever members popped up from them, since that seemed to be the thing to do. Then one day I happened into a live stream of one of the members, who becomes the first to start showing up in dreams and the only one to show up alone with me specifically. In the first dream, I was in a bathroom stall, and he had come in and was cleaning the bathroom, starting at the 4th stall while I was in the 1st. I remember the sense of panic as I wondered why this musician producer was cleaning the bathroom, and I was anxious about having to walk out while he was in there. Somehow he went from the fourth stall to the first in the exact moment that I walked out. We looked at each other, locked eyes, and I felt myself bite my lip as I pulled my skirt, I hardly ever wear skirts, over my exposed hip while never breaking eye contact until I walked out the door, leaving him with his eyebrows slightly raised as he pondered the encounter. I woke up and the immediate thought I had was Sarah Lynn, as the intensity of the dream moment was more than I'd have imagined myself possible in waking life. Shortly after the dream encounter, I would find myself frequently lying in bed at night with a massive sense of discomfort and feeling unsafe in my own body. And that's where he trailed off for the time being. But I feel like I'm starting to be able to weave things together. So that's exciting. I always get really anxious when I'm reading things. And yeah. But I figured that would be a good way to, spend some time on a video today. And it's all stuff that I've talked on here many times about. So yeah, I feel like the biggest point of who I am and my journey in this life is weaving these pieces together and sharing that story, with why I've come to the conclusions that I have. And, sort of, it goes, it was that idea of take a step toward the universe and it'll take several steps toward you, or however that goes. Yeah, so it's like I can only do my itty bitty little part, but as I'm working to do my part, then the universe keeps showing me things along the way to include or helping me with a direction. I talked yesterday about that Once Upon a Midnight Dreary card that I pulled the day before, and was talking specifically about making sure to write what needs to be written, basically. Or at least that's the part I'm rolling with, since that's obviously the big part of what I'm supposed to be doing here. But it was talking about ultimately you're a channel for the divine to communicate through, and you have to be doing your part in that to reveal what's meant to be revealed through you. If that makes sense. She's not sure it makes sense, but okay. Yeah. But I've always felt like I had this big mission. And the knowings that I've talked about several times, those came up literally my senior year in high school. And I've talked about them on here many, many times, and what I started talking about mostly when I started back up in March, it's like everything was skewed with this anger and frustration at, stuff that pertained to my ex and, stuff I had to heal from. And it was talking through it on this channel helped me to be able to release it from my system and clear up space for other things to be brought to my attention. And the bit about the feeling unsafe in my own body, that wasn't because of the dream. I think there's more details in there. That was just the next part that I threw out when I was thinking, because I write like I talk on here, so it's kind of all over the place, and it kind of makes sense. And I mean, it usually makes a lot more sense than I expect that it will, even on the really erratic days. But it's I start with one thing, and then it's well, that's not entirely the point, and then that leads me to somewhere else, and so it's kind of just a weaving the pieces together. But as I've weaved them together on YouTube, then make all these other connections. Because, like, there's a whole nother thing that I've been writing also that's more focused on the aspect of how the religious and political structures in place are set up to keep us divided, that I talk on here very much about. And that whole point about being divided within ourselves first, because as long as we are divided within ourselves, we feel we need somebody else to rule over us, and thus the toxic systems that are in place are able to be in place and to continue being toxic and sucking the life out of everything. And that one's actually pretty good. But I almost printed it off to share it, and it's like, I don't feel like I'm ready to share that one just yet. I definitely will, but that's like something like much bigger than this. I mean, this other one's pretty big because this is basically my entire life journey, but more specifically, everything within the last 6 years that has basically tightened up to she's like all sorts of passed out back there. Yeah. That one's the only one awake apparently. Nope, he's awake. He was snoring though. Yeah, but I wasn't ready for that one. Like, I read through it. It's like, I really like this. I really like where it's going, but there's so much more to it, and I don't think I'm there yet. But the other thing, I mean, it's stuff I've literally been sharing the entire time I've been doing this, just from, as I've shifted my focus, like, because now I'm not spending all my time being angry about shit with my ex. It still comes up as is relevant for, other stuff. Like, that dream that I talked about, that I didn't share the details of the dream, but that I've talked about on here, where it's like this, this building and everything kind of had like this orangey hue. And at one point I was sitting on this couch next to my ex, and Ziva was sitting in my lap growling, and growling at him, and behind us were 4 of the guys from this band on stools. And I remember looking at the twin flame and being like, he was the one that stood out the most, and like I kept looking at him and it was like, really confused as to why they were there. This dream I had was in 2020. I actually had like 7 dreams, I think, that included multiple guys from the band. But that's the only one that stuck with me. Mainly because, because a couple years ago when I got back into, like, I didn't know why they came up. I thought it was just a silly little crush on a dude, right? And so I went through and it's like, this is a lot of dreams. And, I kind of felt like, well, that's going back to that point of feeling like it was obsessive and not understanding it and just, rolling on that end. Then I was like, I got to get rid of these, so I deleted all of them off. There's one other that I remember pieces from, but not much of it at all. It was mainly, like around a lake, and yet there was like campfire songs, but it was like one of their songs. It was like playing, I guess. So I don't know, that was a weird thing. But this dream, I keep going back to it, and I realized I can go into the dream now and realize or see different aspects of it. But one of the biggest things I learned, or I realized first from it, was that I realized now what are you two doing? I think we got tied up back there. Hold on. Okay. But no, the first thing was when I went back into it, it's like my ex was literally a leech on my energy. And like the anger that I had toward him, I realized was just sucking the life out of me. Cool. Hey, no, not yet. We're almost done. Stay. Yeah. Stop. But yeah, so he was basically just like sucking the life out of me because of this anger that I had toward him. You know, and I kept talking about it on here, talking through it on here, and being able to release it that way. But after I released some of the anger from it, and I went back into the dream, it was like I'd cleared enough that stop, that I could communicate with this guy, the twin. Stop. I'm okay. I will regret this immediately because I don't have my coat on. But yeah, like, where was I? I realized that the anger was basically a leech on my energy. So after I cleared that and was able to go back into it, then I realized that, you know, I was looking at this guy and it's like he was talking mainly to these other guys in the band. But don't smell good. My car smells weird. But yeah, it's like he couldn't look at me, but he could talk to me. And then what he said was, if you need help, let me know. And I said, I felt like it was something I had to do on my own. But then as I've shifted through that and realized that I don't have to do things on my own, you know, then I talked about how backseat, no, how, hey, no, stop it, how, oh, hey, stop it, you're gonna get in trouble. Once, okay, so we had to get more water. Then I realized that I could, oh, okay, what happened? So I realized I didn't have to do everything by myself like I thought I did, right? So then that shifts to the celebration of life thing that actually happened in June. And I've talked about how there was a couple that, be nice, that my parents have been friends with that, well, they've obviously been friends with the whole group, so, for the other lady's husband. So this other couple that my parents knew really well because they used to always hang out together. I might have to fix that again. Hey. Stop. Oh, we're running amok now. What do you need? I got a Zibby in my lap. I'm not sure what that's all about. What do you think? Damn it. At the celebration of life, that guy got kind of, he was like, he moved because the sun was in his spot. I think Zippy's got a potty again. And then that's going to lead to a whole ordeal because the other three are going to want out to... You got a potty? You got a potty? Or are we just sniffing? I don't know. She's just hanging out on my lap. Anyway. Stop! No! The guy was sitting in the sun, and the sun was directly on him, so he moved over and came to stand behind me and my mom, and he wasn't like in our business too close or anything, but it's like his energy, like I felt it creeping and invading my space kind of a thing, right? And I was I was thinking through stuff that I've learned in my groups and whatnot with trying to expand your aura to fill a space. Although we talked about it, I didn't didn't stay in that group. Here's my Zibby in my lap. I don't know what's going on here. Hi. But while go back to her seat now. Everybody's running amok. But at least we're contained, I guess. But yeah, it's like I was thinking about like what I'd heard from my group about expanding your aura to fill the space, so you're not affected by other people's energies or whatever, right? You can kind of control the atmosphere. And I hadn't sat through those groups, so it's kind of playing it by ear and trying to figure out on my own. And then, hey, let me fix this. I see what they did, but I can't fix that without getting in the back. Stop. Hey. Anyway, so since I hadn't sat through the classes, I didn't really know what to do on that end. Then I had this random thought of, hey, to this other aspect of myself, i.e. twin flame, i.e. person that I've carried with me my entire life. It's like, he's making me uncomfortable. What do I have to do for him to move? And like, it was literally just posing that question out for the universe, if you will. And within like 30 seconds, this guy starts looking really uncomfortable and moves to the other side of the table, and he's sitting there with his wife, and then he looks like really uncomfortable, and he looks at his wife, kind of like the anxiety is growing or something, and says, "We need to go." It was just a matter of, like in the dream, he said, "If you need my help, ask, or let me know. If you need my help, let me know." And then, in this actual real life situation, it's like, all right, so what's that all about? So I posed that. This thing still smells weird. I think it needs fixed again, to be honest. That's not helpful. But actually, I think it just kind of dead, and hey, I need a new car. How about that? Let's manifest one of those. Anyway. Yeah, it was like just posing that out there and requesting the help, and then suddenly it's like it's just handled. It's like I didn't even have to do anything. It just handled. I just said, "Hey, this is making me uncomfortable," and then, "Hey, it's gone." Yeah. So the little puppy's looking at me through the window. It's chilly. But yeah, it's like weaving together those details too, like the stuff that has come up through visions and knowings and things that I've seen along the way, and making sense of them, but also, like the numbers that I keep seeing everywhere. And I say that because I literally looked up a few seconds ago and saw his birth date again. And it's like it's always popping up. Yeah. I watched this twin flame thing the other day that was talking about ways you can tell if your counterpart is thinking about you or whatever. And like one of the things it threw out there was you see their name, initials, or birth date all over the place. It's like I have seen those almost nonstop for a while. You know, and I've talked about over here at the cemetery, you know, I've talked about the stone. It's on that that way north from where I'm standing, where, you know, I always saw the stone. The guy that died, he died in 2001, and I've been walking over here with the dogs for years, and that stone always got my attention, and I thought it was because, you know, the shape, it's like the shape of a candle flame, but also the fact that the kid was born in 1980, which was the same year my brother was born. So that was the connection I made back then. Then once this twin flame stuff started amping up and really revealing itself, then I realized that the death date for that kid on that stone that I've walked by and looked at for years was the twin flame's birthday. It's like, that's interesting. You know, and there's just those kind of details, and it's like all stuff that I've talked on here many times about, but weaving it together so I can actually put it in like book form, so it's got the whole story, but also, you know, this, you know, I keep getting messages about, okay, fours, repeating fours are about stability. And I was watching, I don't even know what the tarot reading was the other day, but I've got multiple messages about you're in the long game, and, you know, everything has a purpose. It's about laying the foundation and piecing it together at really deep levels, you know, so like real foundational stuff. And it's stuff I've been talking about literally the entire time I've been doing this, even before I started talking about the twin flame stuff on here. It's like the same stories, you know, and, you know, going back to that point where the girl in the dream said it would take time to build momentum, but it would in time. And like the biggest thing on that end is, you know, when I started this channel, it freaked me the fuck out. And I was not actively trying to build it. I'm still not actively trying to build it. I think I've told a handful of people in my real world scenario that it even exists. And only a couple have I actually shared any links to. One of which is my cousin that does watch my videos. So yeah, but it's like the first year from 11/11 when I started it, 11/11/2023 to 11/11/2024, I had 12 subscribers in the first 3. I had so much anxiety, and I'm pretty sure I cried over just being stressed out about it. And it's like I hit the year mark, and then I was up to 12, and it's like, okay, cool. You know, I'm still not trying to grow at a huge amount or anything, and just doing things because I felt like I should do them. Like it's a very important part of what I'm supposed to be doing, because it's that whole, you know, all the dots that I've been collecting. I'm also weaving the whole bigger picture, and pulling that information into place. You know, my hand is cold more than anything. My hand holding the phone. But yeah, so then when I hit the 1 year mark, don't eat my coat. When I hit the 1 year mark, stop. I got to a point where I was thinking I should do 100 videos, or I wanted to do 100, get to my 100th video before the end of the year. So I started increasing what I was doing on that end, you know, and then there was a big jump in a short span of time. And yeah, then it's like as I continue and, you know, do them more regularly and try to make it a daily thing, it's like it kind of keeps jumping. Not a huge amount. Oh, that's something I didn't talk about. I have made it, I think I'm at my next milestone was I made it to 150 videos the other day. There's 4s again. But when I made it to the 150th video, I was going to talk about it, but then I wasn't sure if the one I had posted at that time was that one or if I needed one more to do it because it was still loading, so I wasn't sure how YouTube did on that whole thing. But then it ended up being, put my other hand in my pocket, being that it was 150. So now I'm at 100, I think this will be 153. And I'm up to 55 subscribers. So that's kind of happy. But still, it's like all this time I'm not actively trying to grow it. I'm just actively trying to stay consistent about doing things and not being afraid of talking about things that I know at some level are going to piss a lot of people off. I mean, it's kind of the whole point of this being a foundational time and about building something slowly, because it's like, I know when I get to the meat of the message that I'm meant to be sharing, a lot of that's going to piss off a whole lot of people, including the people that I currently live with. As soon as they know I've been doing this, they're going to be pissed because they're going to start looking for it, and then they're going to find I talked about them a whole lot too. And yeah, so there's still that whole piece, but they're behaved when I'm out of the car, but it's really cold out here. Yeah. And I've talked a lot about like the abusive things from my parents and everything, but I've also talked about like the fact that, yeah, there was a whole lot of abusive techniques and tactics that they used to keep my brother and I in line, but at the same time, they're also people that had their own abusive upbringings and just accepted it as it was what it was, and that was how it was supposed to be. So they were just living from the wound and thus perpetuating the wound for me and my brother. Until, I started doing my talk therapy and he started going to therapy, and yeah, that's been a whole thing too. So anyway, I'm cold. I'm gonna get these dogs home so I can feed them and figure out why my car smells, or pass it off to the old guy that doesn't give a shit. And hopefully it doesn't kill us in the meantime. It kind of smells carbon monoxide-y or whatever, and I know you're not supposed to smell that or whatever, but that's just what it makes me feel like when I don't always smell it when I'm driving, but sometimes I do, and it's right after I started it up, and then I'll crack the windows because I don't want that to be the case. That's a problem. I got my dogs in the car and me, and hey, I'm driving, so I would like all of us to not die in there. So yeah, but I have to figure out that. I don't remember what I was saying before that, but I'm gonna wrap this up. So as always, I appreciate you, and until the next time, see ya.